You too, boss. It going. The Goat House is back on the second official day of NFL free agency. We got more grades for you. We got a bunch of grades on the channel, grading all kinds of signings. There's a playlist available. I'll put a link in the comment section there. All the grades there. So we got some more here, some big signings today, some to go over some of the smaller ones as well. Still thinking there's going to be some big trades that go down, and we'll grade those here. Go to our Instagram for some of the smaller trade grades, and there's definitely more signings to go down, so we'll grade those as well. NFL draft content, a whole lot of it is just around the corner here, so make sure you subscribe to the channel. Check out walkthemock.com. If you sign up, use code GOATHOUSE. It's very cool. Simulator there. Here's our Twitter, absolute must follow. A lot of you guys joining in here. Appreciate you at GOATHOUSE NFL, and you're just always talking breaking news, breaking it down, giving you my thoughts on everything on what's going on. So definitely worth checking out. First one from earlier this morning, Jared Cook goes to the Chargers. So they miss out on Hunter Henry, and they have to kind of find a replacement, and they grab Jared Cook. There's some, Kyle Rudolph also got signed. We'll talk about him. So some similar type tight ends out there. So their new offensive coordinator, Lombardi, coming from the Saints. Yeah, I was familiar with him. So we kind of felt like this. What if they let Hunter Henry walk? Would they just be getting Cook? I felt like they almost had that decided, that the plan was, we don't really want to overpay Henry because we want to use that money on offensive line, and we'll probably just end up with Cook. I kind of felt like they had that in the back of their minds. But it's also something I don't like, too, because you didn't really want to, pay big money to Hunter Henry. I think they would have, but they didn't want to, so they can kind of save it to build, because they need to build a whole offensive line. And that didn't really go to plan. They did add Corey Linsley, but center. But yeah, I kind of just wish they signed Hunter Henry at this point and just build offensive lines with the draft. I think you would have more that way and you'd be better. So I'm not really thrilled about that plan, but this deal itself, 1 year, $6 million. He is aging. Did kind of have a fumbling problem last year too, but it's kind of the best available situation here. I give it a B-. Not in love with it. Don't dislike it, because he was kind of one of the better ones available. But yeah, that's what I got for the Chargers. They still got some cap space left, so see if they make something happen here. Another tight end, Kyle Rudolph, goes 2 year, $14 million, so he gets $7 million per year. I thought he would end up getting like a cheaper. I thought he was going to end up kind of being somewhat of a steal, meaning that he was going to get cheaper than what his value is. But he actually probably got a little more here. He is a hell of a red zone target, so I still think one of the best in football. He's not going to be too much use in the open field to use Evan Engram for that, though. They do have quite a few tight ends, so this was kind of interesting. But really good red zone target, so that kind of, maybe people are kind of, if Barkley's in, kind of just expecting Barkley to get the ball. They don't want Daniel Jones to turn the ball over, so they're kind of just expecting that. But if you have a guy like Kyle Rudolph in the red zone, it definitely makes things better for sure. So that's an area where I think they definitely improved. Surprised about the 2 year deal too, though. Yeah, I'm kind of in the same range as Jared Cook. B range is still a good grade. Just a little surprising there, but yeah, still really good red zone target. Next one, Kenyan Drake, a running back, goes to the Raiders. A little surprising once again, 2 year, $11 million. We knew the Raiders probably grab a running back too, but do you spend $5.5 million a year on a running back too? Normally you don't. Maybe we'll see a little bit of two running backs in the backfield there with Drake and Josh Jacobs, of course. But yeah, it's definitely a little interesting. I do like, Drake's a really good running back too. It's that $5.5 million. The money needs to be spent on a free safety, cornerback. They did a pretty good job in the defensive line, but they do kind of have to retool the offensive line. They still got some pieces because they had incredible depth before they started making their cuts. They definitely need to get better at receiver. I'm not a fan of what they're doing at receiver. I feel like that's kind of when I bring up my line that you can't be afraid to get better. I think that kind of apply. I think the Raiders are kind of, at the moment, are kind of afraid to get better. That's kind of what I mean by that, at the receiver position, because they're so worried about Henry Ruggs, Hunter Renfrow, Bryan Edwards kind of developing, and they will just add a guy like John Brown. They don't want, they just want those guys to develop, and it's good to develop those guys, but it's a team that wants to win now, right? Yes, Gruden wants to win right now, so go attack. And Juju Smith-Schuster's still out there. Maybe Maybe they prove me wrong here. Very easily could. I'm not saying that I'm not predicting the future that they're going to continue along this path. I'm just saying at this moment, yeah, I'm not really thrilled with that. So spending some of that money, they still have money, so don't get me wrong here. I do like Drake as running back too. I do think somebody to compliment Jacobs definitely helps a bit. It's just not the best deal. Give it a C-. A lot of people will probably give it worse grade than that, but I do like Drake, as an RB2, so bump it up to a C- there. Will Fuller goes to the Dolphins. A little bit of surprise there. Cowboys are signing Terrell Basham. And the Seahawks are bringing back Ethan Posich. So that's some news as I'm recording here. I'm just making sure I retweet these things. But yeah, Will Fuller, one of the big-time receivers, heads to the Dolphins. And yeah, the receiver market, I'm saying it it's crashed. It has crashed here because a lot of the players are getting way lower amounts than they thought they would. So Will Fuller kind of part of that, $10 million. It's not an official deal yet. They're saying a little over $10 million maybe with crazy incentives, the way it's been put out there, maybe the most incentives of this free agency. And that's fine because incentives usually are if you get this many yards, this many catches, you get that money. And it's going to be much higher than 10, but 10's a little lower than what his value's at. And that's great because the problem with him is he is suspended first game. It's not that big of a deal. But the injury concern. So if he doesn't get hurt, that's great for the Dolphins. It's fantastic. They're fine given that incentives, all those incentives. So I like this deal. I still think they definitely have a shot at still drafting, a guy like Jamar Chase, third overall, 1-year deal here for Will Fuller, adding Chase into the mix. We're at Devontae Parker. Got a couple years left in this deal, but he's really only locked into this year. And felt like he played better with Fitzpatrick, so does he fit Tua ball? I'm confident he will, but just saying there's no guarantee there. But I like this. I like Will Fuller. I'm going to give it an A+. Something else I want to bring up, too, is, last year, right when Will Fuller comes in, he's a pretty good receiver right off the bat because he's got electrifying speed, home run ability. He's one of the faster players in the NFL on the field. He's definitely one of the faster players. He's dangerous. See, Deshaun Watson's a lot better. Deshaun Watson and the Texans are a lot better. Even when they had DeAndre Hopkins, they were just better when Will Fuller was on the field in general. But you look at last year, right before he got suspended, he was getting better. Kind of backtracking to when he was good. When he first came in, he was good because of the speed. He's a good football player, But I thought he started to take it more than just speed. I thought really started noticing it at a higher level at the end of last year, the routes, the footwork, understanding, different coverages on defenses, knowing where to go. All that was really coming together right before he got suspended. So I felt like he improved. I really saw that. So he's getting better. They desperately, what did they need from receiver? They desperately needed speed. They had no speed and separation from receivers. That hurt Tua and Fitzpatrick games last year. So this is fantastic. $10 million. That's a steal. Of course, at the end of the day, it may not end up a steal in terms of the value, but it could end up because of the incentives, but it could end up at the right price. So they definitely want that. Next up, we got Troy Hill going to the Browns. 4-year, $24 million, $6 million. That's a pretty damn good deal for the Browns here. $6 million. Thought he would get a little more. He could play slot. He could play outside. I think the plan might be to play him in the slot, especially with that $6 million. Mike Hilton, one of the best slots in the game, got $6 million. That was a very good deal for the Bengals as well. And now the Browns get their guy. But he also, I think worst case, he's playing it in the slot at the high level, which the Browns need a slot player really bad. But he also can play outside. Maybe they want him because Greedy Williams is very good if he's on the field. So maybe they want that to work out. But Troy Hill could take over there. Grant Delpit could also possibly play in the slot. So I think it was key to get a versatile guy like this. That's getting better. Again, versatile meaning he can help at outside or inside, and he's fine either way. So it's not like they got a guy to play this spot. I guess we got to put him here. It's really not like that at all. So I really like the fit. They add him back with John Johnson, of course, the Rams duo, and I think it's a great value pickup. So another A+ I'm giving here for the Browns. Yeah, it's a fantastic pickup. This one just happened very recently. Desmond King goes to the Texans. 1 year, $3.5 million. Yeah, that's what I was kind of talking about this on Twitter. The Texans right out the gate, we're just signing a bunch of, depth players, for around this price, maybe a little cheaper. Some guys maybe a little more expensive, in the range. That was confusing because, I didn't think you need to have that as your priority. I didn't think you need to, you're not battling anybody for these guys. They were with the route they wanted to go. I felt like they should have just let the market settle. The market settled way earlier than normal this year. Probably has something to do with the salary cap. And here's an example. So now Desmond King, his market settled a bit. You end up getting him from really cheap, and now you're looking at the guys that you got instantly, and like, wow, we probably could have got those guys cheaper. But mainly, I think they were signing those guys to start. I don't know what their plan is, but mainly they could have saved that money on those guys, waited, and got solid guys like Desmond King to be your starters here. So I'm not really sure what their plan is. I really don't like how they came into free agency and, getting all, rapidly getting like they're about to just fly off the board. I didn't like any of that. And, paying, or signing those guys like they're going to be starters. But this deal itself, I do like. Another really good slot corner. I thought he can get around $5-6 million, multi-year deal. So this is another A+, really good value pickup for the Texans here. Desmond King is, definitely one of the better. There's not too many of them, but one of the better slot corners in football. So that was a pretty good pickup here for the Texans. A bunch of other signings here. Larry Ogunjobi. I actually really like this one for the Bengals here, coming from the Browns to the Bengals. 1 year, $6.2 million. In terms of value, contract, that's about right. It's in the range. You expect something like that. So the grade really isn't super high because of the value. I mean, it's solid. But I kind of like the fit. The Browns, it really wasn't working out what they were doing on the interior, and they played all right. I think they played fine actually on the interior with Sheldon Richardson and Ogunjobi. But it almost felt like those were too similar. Not exactly. Sheldon Richardson going to play a little more 3 technique, can get more pressure. But, I don't know if those are two guys you play alongside each other. And the Browns realize that now. The Bengals, on the other hand, Ogunjobi and DJ Reader, though that's a fit. DJ Reader's more of your nose tackle, and Ogunjobi's kind of free to play what he is kind of meant to play now. So I kind of like that fit. What it means for Geno Atkins, I guess, is to be determined, but it means he could be out. That was good, too, because Geno Atkins still got some talent, and we'll see what they do with him. But, they didn't just cut him, and then, who knows if we're going to get a guy like Larry Ogunjobi. They had enough cap space to hang on to Geno Atkins, and they found out they can get a guy like Ogunjobi. Didn't need to overspend, let the market settle. And now if they want to, it's a kind of a comfortable spot that they're in if they want to move on from Atkins. So, I think he fits the Bengals better than he does the Browns, basically because of who he's playing next to. Bills get Mitchell Trubisky, 1 year, 2.5. I gave this a B+. I'm not really a fan of Mitchell Trubisky's game, to be honest. But what I do like about this is kind of the Bills' plan with this. Obviously, Trubisky's not going to play unless something happens to Josh Allen. Their plan is to bring in a young guy like this and have him sit behind Josh Allen for a year. And then maybe some idiot next year will think, all right, he learned from Josh Allen. What's paying you? That tends to happen. I'm not saying it's going to happen, but that tends to happen more with guys like this than the 34-year-old guy. The 34-year-old guy does end up getting signed by somebody else, but it's for dirt cheap. Now with the younger guy like this, and away from, somebody's had away from the Bears. Bad situation, I guess, in the Bills, good situation, learning from Josh Allen and that staff that groomed Josh Allen. Maybe, let's go get this guy. And they pay him a little more than they should. And then the Bills get a pretty good compensatory pick for it. Not saying it will happen. I like the plan. That plan sounds like an A plan. The reason I don't put it in A range, is because, I guess you could have used this money they were a little tight on cap. They brought, they brought a lot of their own guys back. That was good, but you do want to get better. You want to add other guys, to make your team better, not just stay. Even with Emmanuel Sanders, they kind of stay the same with that, maybe because John Brown replacement. So this kind of affected that in a way. And the more I'm talking about it, realizing, even 2.5 seems small, but 2.5 is $2.5 million. So, I'm not really a fan of that route, but we'll see if they get a compensatory pick. I kind of like the plan. Falcons get Eric Harris, 1 year, $1.35 million. The rate, struggled with the Raiders, but he has those flashes sometimes, and I do think he had a tough job with the Raiders. They either played cover 2 where the safety had to haul ass to the sideline because teams figure out how to just hole shot it against the Raiders very easily because their corners were struggling there too, and the safeties had to get over. They didn't have the best safeties. Or, he was just dead center, middle of the field, by himself. So I think he had a really tough task. I think he still got some upside, being a guy that kind of came out of nowhere. We kind of thought the Falcons may go for a guy like Anthony Harris, and that would have been a really good fit. A little tight on cap. So they go a lot smaller. So it's a little disappointing that they go this small at free safety when they needed one pretty bad. But it's a low risk, maybe somewhat of a high reward. Nothing crazy here. Jets get Keelan Cole. I gave it an A. 1 year, $5.5 million. Pretty productive when given the chance here. It's a cheap deal, $5.5 million. Makes more sense to add that with Corey Davis and maybe even draft a guy somewhere than just overspending a guy, $18 million, whatever the receivers are asking. Makes sense. Chiefs get Mike Remmers. This was an interesting one. This happened, and I'm thinking, what's going on here? Because they signed Joe Tooney. They paid him all that money. So obviously starting at guard, very good guard. Bring Kyle Long in where he switched to guard at the end of his career, and that's where he was better versus tackle. And now they bring Mike Remmers back, which was a disaster at tackle, but they liked him at guard. He played pretty well at guard. So what the hell's going on here? The only explanation is Remmers and Tooney are playing guard, and Kyle Long's actually going back to right tackle. Now, I may need to revisit my Kyle Long signing then because I'm not a big fan of that, there. It's not the end of the world. It's not a bad grade maybe, but I'm not as high on it. Mike Remmers, if he's playing guard, 1 year, 3.5, I kind of like it, even though he really struggled in the Super Bowl, but he was playing tackle where he struggled in the past. He's fine at guard. So I gave it a B. Still some question marks around the whole situation. Love this one. Obviously the Panthers losing Curtis Samuel isn't the greatest thing. Curtis Samuel's obviously better than David Moore. Curtis Samuel fit very well in that new system. So it's tough. But grading this signing alone on the value, David Moore, 2 years, $4.75 million across 2 years, not 1, 2, is ridiculous. This is one of the more underrated receivers in football. He's very reliable. Kind of got that big playability. He's not really Curtis Samuel, but in similar ways has that. I think it's just tremendous value. I think he's going to be productive for them. They still have top two. They still got 2 number ones in DJ Moore and Robbie Anderson. Yes, Robbie Anderson only has 1 more year left on his deal, but they still got 2 ones there. So that's how people will say 1, 2, 3, and I always think, in today's NFL, you definitely got 2 ones. Not every team, but I think I call those guys 2 ones there on that offense. They have more at 2. So I like this value. Lions get Brashard Perriman, 1 year, $3 million. A B, it's a pretty good value. $3 million cheap. They definitely need to add another one here because they're going to go with a big-time rookie probably. So they definitely need to add another one that could play, kind of insurance, but also could because you need to have a rotation. And you start 3 receivers sometimes here. So that makes sense. All that's great. It's a little, it's not that risky because the price, but he's kind of a risky player because there's systems where he's just non-existent in, and he's just not very good. And there's systems, I guess with the Bucs that 1 year where he's crazy, he looked ridiculous. So we'll see. It's kind of a mystery one too, but somewhat good value. It's just, I'm giving that Perriman a B. Other deals have taken place. I just don't. If you don't see them, you haven't seen them yet. I did a bunch of them already, but. I either don't know the contract details or they're happening as I'm talking right now. My phone's going off like crazy, so they probably are. Or they happen just after this, so we'll eventually get to them. But yeah, that'll do it for this one. Again, a playlist, link of that playlist in the comments. Got all the grades there. All kinds of NFL coverage here, including the NFL draft. Cannot wait for that. We'll have you covered. Have you covered fully on our Twitter as well. Check it out, @NFL. Link in the comments for that, as well as many other things. That's going to do it. Thanks for watching. Goodbye.